Hello, my beloved listeners. This is Katherine, your host of the Minded Dragon podcast, and I freaking love you all. I hope you know that. I just love all of you, and I just hope you really receive that, and definitely keep the messages coming. So grateful when you reach out and let me know how the podcast has impacted you and the stories of my guests. And so I'm really excited to be in conversation today with Dr. Dawn Menge. And Dr. Dawn is a prolific author and has a story about a dragon. And so really curious to hear your story and how you kind of came to do what you're doing and how you discovered that you were the main character and heroine of your own life. And so welcome, Dr. Dawn.
And thank you for having me. And I'm so excited to tell your listeners all about my journey.
Yeah. So what's your story?
Okay, well, it started out, I had been married for almost 30 years. And even though I knew I was the main character in my story, suddenly I was divorced and starting my new life. My children were raised. I have 3 children and 6 grandchildren now. And so what do? Because you had planned, this retirement and all this, and then totally doing something else. So I had already been teaching. I teach students with severe cognitive delays. I've been teaching for over 20 years now. So I decided to start working on my PhD. And I actually always blame my little brother for that. So I started working on it. And so it took me 7 years to work on my PhD, and it's in curriculum and instruction. And my dissertation was written on we have federal goals for our students, their transition goals. So when they turn 16, we have special goals that teach them community instruction, workability, independent living. And so that's what my dissertation was written on. And it was actually written on with my students. So I actually just had this article written, and it's in Prosperity Magazine. And it's actually us doing the workability.
Oh, wow.
And my students work, and they were putting labels on Christmas hats. And so they get paid for this through, it's a state program. And then the company also gives us a movie card every month. So we ride the city bus to the movies, and we get to go to the movies. And so this is just an article. It's showing our students and what we're doing. And that's what we do. And that's what I wrote my dissertation on. So I earned my PhD.
Wow.
Well, there was something else that I did too. When I was getting my credential, I took a math class, and I had to write a math book and a math game. So what I did was I wrote a book about calendar skills. And at that point, I called it Queen Victoria's Visitors. I named it after my student. And all of my students were in the books. And so every month is a new visitor, and they have 7 activities. And we actually went around to the elementary schools, and we did a little skit based on the book. And I would go back the next day, and I would explain our students' behaviors, and answer any questions they had. So we did that for several years. And I got a grant through Cal Poly, which is a local college. And so when I got divorced and I was trying to start like a new life, like what do I do now? My kids are raised. Everything I'd been putting my energy to was either accomplished or was over. So I said, okay, I'm going to publish the book. Teachers always want to publish a book. So I did, and I named it after my grandmother.
Oh,
Victoria,
so fun.
Vernita. And she was a businesswoman. She actually went around door to door with my grandfather and founded a credit union. So she was an astute businesswoman and a world traveler. So the book I actually published, I put all of the children in our family in it. This is my daughter, Ashley, and you can see the illustrations. And let's see what else we have. This is my nephew. And so I thought, well, the children in the family, they're not going to worry about it. They're not going to know. So I immediately won first place in the Evie Awards. And I started getting interviews, and people were like, well, what's your next book? What are you going to do? And I'm like, well, that was it. I did it. I did that. So my friends and I decided that we decided, since I love to travel, that the Queen is going to travel around her kingdom, and learn about the different areas of her kingdom. So that's what I've been doing.
Wow. So, Dr. Dawn, did you like at the time of your divorce, did you just know that this was your next step, or how did you kind of recreate yourself, or not recreate, but rediscover who you were now?
No, I did not know what my next step was at all. You know,
Yeah.
I had lost 2 homes, and
Hmm.
all of a sudden I was in this world that was, it was very, there was some domestic violence. So it's very traumatic.
Hmm.
And I was just trying to find a way to keep myself going, find a new
Hmm.
identity and
Yeah.
something new to think about. And, my PhD, my brother is actually an astronomer at JPL.
Hmm.
And so he started his PhD program. And so I started, otherwise, I would not even have thought I could accomplish that. I
Hmm.
had my master's from getting my credential, but a PhD, when I started when I was 19, I remember my goal was I was going to be a preschool teacher. You know,
Hmm.
I was going to go to junior college. And then I ended up going to junior college and then university. And then
Yeah.
I get my master's degree and then a PhD. No one in my family has a PhD. And
Wow.
so we worked on it together. And he actually wrote this book with me. He's an astronomer. And this is
Hmm.
him. We called him Heathy Bean when he was little because he's 9 years
Oh.
younger than I am. So he was Heathy Bean, and he wanted to be the professor with the hair, and he has bunny slippers. And so
Hmm.
what I did, this was about my third book. So I put some of my students and their disabilities in the books.
Hmm.
So this is Jeremy, and Jeremy is learning about astronomy, but he's also teaching about Down syndrome. And he
Hmm.
was my student, and he is a real child. And I have Jake in here also. This is Jake. Jake is a real child. Every one of my books is a real person. And
Hmm.
he is a foster child of my assistant, and he has cerebral palsy. So Sir Heathy Bean is teaching him about the moon, but he's also teaching Sir Heathy Bean about cerebral palsy. And
Wow.
so in my books, the children are just living their lives and they're just talking a little bit about what's going on for them. And so I've
Hmm.
just had a great time. It's
Wow.
a
Yeah,
lot
I
of work,
bet. I
but I've had
bet.
a great time. It's like, oh, where am I going to go next? What am I going to write about?
Yeah. And so how did you, so I love this, right? Because I think that so many people would look at you and think like, wow, here's this very successful, she's a PhD, she's like an award-winning children's author, she's a phenomenal educator. And I think it could be easy to look at that and think, oh, she's always had it figured out,
Right.
right?
That's, yes, yes. That's one reason I actually started doing a lot of podcasts because that is the impression. And it's like,
Hmm.
no, now
Yeah.
I have to work hard too, just like everyone else. And things happen, things have
Yeah.
happened, and I've had to
Yeah.
start over. And that's, so during the pandemic, we had to go start teaching online. And I was
Mm.
actually working at the state up in Sacramento. I live in California. And I help write and evaluate the standardized tests we do for our students. So we were up there and there was teachers from different districts all over the state up there, and they were starting to close them down. And we're like, what is going on? So I
Hmm.
flew home, went to work on Friday, and we didn't go back.
Wow. Yeah.
So we didn't have any curriculum, we didn't have anything. So one of the goals because I'd been so busy, I said, okay, I'm going to catch up. Because
Mm.
when I first started writing, I had a goal, I was going to write 1 book a year. And I was just having fun. That's all I was doing, was having fun, writing my books, going on adventures. So I caught up. So I've actually just published my 5th book since we started the pandemic, got everything out. And the one reason I wanted to go on the podcast was I did this book. And I actually wrote it several years ago. And the story behind this book, this isn't part of the Queen Vernita series. It's called Dragon's Breath. So after I got divorced and I started dating, now I got married when I was 19. So,
Wow.
and so I don't know about dating. Here I am. I've been married almost 30 years, almost my entire adult life. Well, basically my whole adult life at that point. So dating was completely foreign to me. So I met a man and we really liked each other, but he had a friend who was in a ministry. And so she came over to my house and she decided she did not want me dating him. So she actually called me a dragon slayer and then
Mm.
proceeded to harass me and stalk me inside of my home. She had my neighbors bothering me, and she got into my emails and my social media and all sorts of things. It was pretty awful. So this went on for years and we couldn't catch anybody. So we didn't know who it was until I actually had to sell my house. So it was
Mm.
after 3 years. And then it continued actually after that. So this is a story I wrote about that experience. And it just talks about King Teddy Bear and the Queen. And they have this black smoke because she said I had a black cloud over my house. So
Mm.
the dragon's old, and the dragon can't breathe fire, can only breathe smoke. So she gets jealous about the queen and she starts blowing smoke on the crops, and the crops are dying. And then the king finally catches her and banishes her. And then the crops go back and everything's fine. And they all live happily ever after.
Mm.
But I published this almost a year ago now, and it's been read all over the world. It's very popular in Jamaica and the UK, and I've been having a great time with it.
Wow, that's very cool. I love how you are taking challenges and really turning them into right that in life, because life brings challenges to all of us, but
Yes.
we have a choice about um what we do with that. And so in that process of discovering, like, how did you discover that you love to write?
Um, that was purely accidental.
Mm.
They asked me to write this in my class,
Yeah.
and then I just started winning. At this point, my series has won over, I stopped counting at
Mm.
44 words. And then one thing I did also during the pandemic is I saw a thing on Facebook for film festivals.
Mm.
And I thought, I've never tried that. I like to try new things. So I wrote her and I said, well, I have books. I don't have a screenplay or anything. Can I enter it? And she said, yes. So I entered my books into the Conquering Disabilities with Film Festival.
Mm.
And we just went in July, we went to Vegas, and there's like 17 different film festivals in this one. And so they actually played my book trailers on the big screen. So that was very exciting. And my series won the Special Recognition Champion Award from Conquering Disabilities. And Dragon's Breath won Best Book from Miracle Makers. And it
Wow.
also won honorable mention from Hollywood Dreams. And
Wow.
so now my publisher has someone at Netflix who's interested in the series. So we just had 2 screenplays made. We did Sir Heathy Bean, and I just did this one. It's on our camping trips to the beach. So it's
Wow.
pre-K to first grade, and it has camping and kite flying and s'mores making and raccoons and ostriches. So we made
Hmm.
that into the screenplay. So we're
That is
entering,
so fun.
yeah. So it's, this one little book has turned into
Wow.
just this whole new life. And
Hmm.
so I guess that's how I discovered I really like writing. I liked expressing myself. It gives me a
Hmm.
very positive avenue because,
Hmm.
get to travel. And when I first started getting divorced, I had a friend I grew up with. I grew up in a very small mountain town. And so I knew him since we were in the 5th grade together, but he married a woman who grew up in Kona, Hawaii.
Hmm.
So, we all started connecting on Facebook, and so we actually flew out there. It was my kids and my friend and her kids, and we saw them again. So I was able to go out there probably once every 6 months. I was very lucky. I had a lot of support,
Hmm.
and I would just stay at their house and just explore and rest, and they were wonderful. And so I actually wrote this book, and they are the main characters in the book.
Oh, wow.
They're Sea Captain Jeff and Enchantress Carrie. And this is actually a tree in their yard. And this child is also disabled. This child is blind. And so he's describing the
Hmm.
the bird that's in his yard. And I also have one that is the ocean. And then she's deaf. So they're describing what the ocean sounds like to her. But
Oh,
they are
wow.
the main characters in this story. And all of the things
Wow.
in the books are things we have done. And
Hmm.
So this
So
one,
did
oh, sorry.
you, so Dr. Dawn, did you ever think that you would become a best-selling author with like a Netflix
No,
was that right? So and
no.
and and
When I
so
was 19, I thought I was going to be a preschool teacher, but I was really lucky.
yeah. And so what were those choice points along that way, right? Because I think that life is so full of opportunity, and often it's our own thinking about ourselves, what we're capable of, like, oh, I could never do that, or that's for someone else, right? And we kind of we dampen ourselves. So what was it that you did that allowed you to really come alive with this?
Well, it was kind of a reaction to what was happening to me. So he was making bad decisions. So my ex-husband was kind of taking our life apart. And
Hmm.
so it's kind of like being drawn down, and I was going this, trying to go this way and my own way. So it's just fighting back and going, no, you go do that, but I'm going to go do this. And it is
Uh,
scary. It's scary to get out there. It's scary to, I mean, when I first started and I first started doing interviews, my friends would sit with me and do the
hmm.
interviews with me, because it's scary to talk about things. And I don't really like the limelight. This is all, getting new for me. I don't like being like, I'll have other people like, here, you go talk. But
Yeah.
but I like adventure too. And that's one thing I did too, is like I used to play contests and I would win all of the time. So one thing I did
Hmm.
was I won a trip to Oahu, and I wanted to go in a shark cage. So that's what we did. I took my whole family and we went to on a shark cage. And that's in this book. This is on Kona. But this I also have. This is one of the ones that won the award. This little girl, she's a real little girl. She has Rett syndrome, and her name is Ireland, and her mom's name is Heather. And they've been on interviews with me so that the mom could talk about what it's like for Ireland, what it's like for the family. And it just talks a little bit about her disability. And
Hmm.
then this one too. So this, just my passion for my students and
Yeah.
educating people and getting people to, oops, sorry, getting people to understand that our students, they're living their lives
Hmm.
and they want to be out there. This little boy is Connor, and it's his dad, Steve, and they're at the Volcanic National Park in Kona,
Hmm.
Hawaii with the Queen. And Connor is autistic and he's nonverbal. So he has a communication device. So what he's doing is he's teaching the Queen about his communication device.
Hmm.
So this one is sixth grade. And so if a child's reading this, they'll go through it and they'll say, oh, I know someone at my school that has like a phone or iPad that they're walking around with. And oh, they're not playing games. This is what they're doing. So you're just reading
Hmm.
along and then you learn about it. But I didn't know I liked to write. I just started doing it, and it is hard. It's hard. I mean, I'm sure when you started your podcast, you were like, no one's going to listen to me. What do I have to say? You know, and am I going to be successful? Am I not going to be? But if you worry about all that, if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, like the one thing I had when I was going through this dragon's breath thing, I joined the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators.
Hmm.
Anybody wants to write children's books, wonderful organization. You meet people who are New York Times bestselling authors to people who haven't yet published yet. But they're all just supportive and wonderful. But Kwame Alexander, who is just getting a movie made out of, he's very famous. He has a speech called Yes.
Hmm.
And anybody can look that up on YouTube and listen to him. And it was at the end of this conference, and I was so tired, and it was the last speech. And I'm like, okay, I want to listen to this. So I actually had to sit on the floor in the back of the room. And he said, you know what? Say yes to the opportunities,
Hmm.
because you don't know what one is going to lead to the other, what's going to lead to the other. And so he's the only person I've actually ever written to.
Hmm.
And I wrote him and I thanked him for that, because I really needed to hear that at that moment. I was tired. I wanted to give up. I was being harassed. And so what I started doing was just saying yes. And I actually started working with an educational magazine out of It's Tempe, Arizona. So it's another state. So we drive there, and I do book events with them, and I judge their literacy contests, and I write book reviews, and I also judge a contest for indie romance books, because
Hmm.
I thought I never get to read for fun anymore. So they were looking for a judge. So I've been doing that about 5 years now. I read about six, beginning of June, six indie books and decide, and they're always so wonderful. And so I just, when I can, I say yes to different opportunities like the film festival. It's like, oh, I haven't done that before, you know, and not everything works out. No, life's hard, and it's hard for lots of people, and we have to work hard. But that is why I started doing the podcast, because they do. People see, the accomplishments, and they see that, and they think, oh, nothing, she doesn't have it hard. Nothing's ever
Hmm.
happened. But no, that's not true.
Yeah, I love that, right? Saying yes to life.
Yes.
And, and I hope everybody who's listening, really ask yourself and check in, like, where are you saying yes to life? Because when you say yes to life, life says yes to you right back.
And you know what? If it doesn't work out that great the first time, try it a little differently, try something else. There's a lot of things I've done that I wasn't that great at, I failed at, you know, you sh- getting my PhD, you don't know how many times I wanted to stop. But I had a lot of support. I had a friend who's very stern, and she would say, get back to work, get back to work. And I'd get back to work. And, I and it is hard. It is hard, but you have to have a, a lot of faith in yourself and a lot of support. And if you don't have immediate support, there are groups you can join to get the support. Like as an author, I was having some difficulties. So I joined a professional organization, and that was the best thing I ever did.
Hmm.
And I went to a lot of their conferences, and, and they would get there. There'd people up there who have movies made out of their books, and they'd put all their rejections all the way across the stage, and they'd say, this is how many times I was rejected, and
Wow.
that's like the best thing they could do, because you see them,
Mm-hmm.
you have a movie. That was easy for
Mm-hmm.
you. Like, no, it wasn't. No, this is what I
Yeah.
did. I just kept going, so
Oh, I think that's so, so important for people to really hear that, we don't see all of the, like the overnight success is actually a 20-year story. We
right,
see the
right,
pinnacle. We don't see, like you said, all of those rejections. And so in your life, so for my listeners, in your life, if you're feeling like, things it's not working the way I would love it to work, this is harder than I thought, you know, know that that's actually part of the process.
right,
So
right,
if you're feeling that way, you're actually doing it right.
right. And it's okay to rest. It's okay to
Mm,
take a break. It's okay to step back and reevaluate, what direction you're going. Maybe you're going in the wrong direction. Maybe that's why you're having difficulty.
mm-hmm.
Um, but don't be afraid to ask people for help, ask
Yeah.
questions, go to experts,
Yeah.
listen to how did other people do it. Very few people have had just like this easy road,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah, and it's so important to have those people who believe in you when you're having a hard time believing in yourself.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, and that kind of, yeah.
it is hard.
Yeah. So what were some of the biggest challenges for you on your journey?
Uh, Wondering if what I was doing was worth doing, whether I was
Mm,
making an impact on anyone, you know, why am I doing this? Yes, I love to travel, and yes, I'm having fun, but as an author, it's hard to get the feedback back. People don't, they might buy your books, but you don't know if they read them. You don't know if it's
yeah.
helping them. You don't
Yeah.
know. And so one thing, like when I start feeling kind of like, well, maybe I've done my author thing, maybe it's
Mm,
done. And I have a friend who actually helps teach the Somalian refugees.
mm,
He works in Washington, and he works actually in a factory, and he teaches them how to, they learn English, and then they learn how to work and everything. And so he uses my books for their students. And he just
wow.
wrote me a couple weeks ago. I sent him my new books, And he said that there was a woman, but she was, so I don't know where she was from, but she was speaking Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So she had grandchildren. So this was her age. And she was reading the first one. And he was telling me how she struggled, what she did, the formatting and all of that. And then she got a lot better at it. She's reading, because they go from pre-K to 6th grade. So now
Mm.
she's reading the higher levels, and she's actually taking it home and reading it with her grandchildren. And right there,
Wow.
I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good. Here, let me send you 20 more books. You
Oh.
know, and I have a speech therapist who actually came from Africa, and her family members are teachers there. And so
Hmm.
she took some of my books and she gave them to them. And so I have one on Alaska, and she actually sent me a videotape of a little girl in Africa reading this book on
Wow.
her birthday to her class.
Oh, my
And so
heart.
I know, so when that comes up on my Facebook, I'm like, this is my
Oh.
favorite video of all time. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
she's on the other side of the world reading about my family and our adventures and learning. And it was like, that is so amazing,
Wow.
and now I've branched out to, Jamaica and the UK. And I just read this one. This is one we did. This one is a train ride from
Mm.
Williams, Arizona to the Grand Canyon.
Oh, wow.
And I needed some more pre-K books. So this is our family. There was 19 of us that were
Oh
on the
my
trip.
goodness. And it looks like that's a Christmas one. There's Santa
Yes,
Claus on the front cover.
yes. We went over Thanksgiving. And so we actually went to a Santa's workshop. And these are my grandchildren. They were making a teddy bear
Oh,
in the Santa's
wow.
workshop. So it's an actual picture she made into an illustration. And this is my granddaughter looking out the window of the train.
Wow.
And so after we rode the train during the day, we went to the Grand Canyon. It was snowing. It was really neat.
Ooh, that is
We
neat.
came back, put our jammies on, all of us. We had I think my grandson was probably 3 at that time.
Hmm.
And our oldest one they were in their late 70s. We all put our pajamas on and we rode the Polar Express.
Oh,
And so
wow.
that's where Santa Claus came from.
Wow.
So we rode the Polar Express. They had the cookies, the hot chocolate, listened to the story. And this is actually my grandson. He fell asleep in Santa's lap. It's his actual
Mm.
picture. And
Wow.
I just read this for a podcast called Bedtime Stories, and it's available to anybody. But it's in the UK. And just in the first 2 weeks, it had almost 1,000 downloads.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
it's a Christmas story that everyone's enjoying, and that makes me happy.
Yeah.
You know?
And I love that we don't know the impact that we have on others, right? And I think so often we can think, oh, I have to do all of these things for everybody else. I need to be focused on what other people need of me or want of me. And we think that that's how we serve them. And yet for you, by really following this nudge, right, this like, oh, I enjoyed that, I think I would love to do some more of that, you are having such an impact by following your joy and your passion. You're impacting and serving people all over the world.
Yeah, that's like, I never thought that would happen.
Yeah.
You know, that was not on my bucket list. But yeah, I did a couple, I think it was about a year ago now. I did an interview for a man, I think he was in St. Louis. And he said he was talking to his friend before the interview, and she had been checking my books out from the library
Mm.
there.
Oh,
I
wow.
didn't even know they were in the library there, but she had actually gotten a second job so that she could travel with her son. And that was all from my books. And I'm like, wow, if I had not have done that interview, I would not have known that.
Yeah.
I would never have known that.
Yeah.
So,
And
you know,
how much good we bring to the world when we follow our heart,
yes,
right?
yes,
That has a ripple effect around everyone.
yes. And it
Yeah.
just, it just makes me feel good to know that even one person, and that's one thing that if people are feeling kind of lost or unsure about what they're doing, if you've impacted one person in a positive
Mm.
way, if you've helped them move forward, resolve an issue, connect with them. Like, I talk a lot about what happened to me. There was a lot of gaslighting
Mm.
and a lot of that type of thing. And that happens to people. And when it's happening, you think, did that happen? And,
Mm.
the whole point of it is to get you confused and to start doubting yourself. So I talk about the things that were done to me so that other people, if they're experiencing that, they can connect with that and say, oh, that is happening to me, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe get some help or maybe get it to stop or, whatever they can do. So that's just why you talk about things that happen to you.
Yeah, and that I think that that lets other people know that you're not alone, and so
Yes.
often we can think it's just us, right? I'm the only
Yeah.
one who
Yes.
struggles, or I must be whatever, fill in the blank, when it
Yeah.
often is not. It's not us. Yeah.
No, no.
So, Dr. Dawn, what words of wisdom would you have for that younger the woman? She's just come out of a marriage, some abusive stuff going on. Is really like, okay, who am I now? Not knowing. What would you say to her?
Well, a woman who's married, always have your own credit. you
Mm,
know, build your own identity up. You're not just an extension of someone else. You are a person yourself, and don't don't allow yourself to be abused.
mm,
Seek help, seek
mm-hmm,
support. Sometimes within your own family, the person that's abusing you is supported
mm,
because they're great at, and around other people in public, being like this perfect person when they're not, behind the closed doors, as they say.
mm-hmm.
But definitely, if you don't get support within your family or your circle, seek committees or groups or somebody to talk to. But if you're just starting out and you're starting your life anew, find whatever it is your passion is.
Mm,
Mine just happened to be this. But
yeah,
if you love gardening, garden and then join a gardening group. If you love reading, join a reading group. If you enjoy crocheting, join
yeah.
find a group that you fit with. Find the people that you fit with, and then you'll get a lot of support that way too.
Hmm. Yeah, and such good advice. And I think too that sometimes we think like, oh, it's just gardening. How's that going to change my life? And it's not necessarily about the gardening, but it's about saying yes to yourself. It's about saying yes to life. And we say yes to life by following our passion and what we
But
enjoy.
but what if, like, okay, we have a community garden here in our little
Yeah.
town. But what if you start your garden and then you go to the gardening group, and then, oh, they have a community garden, and now you're helping grow the community garden with people that need it,
Yeah.
that people,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you don't know
Mm-hmm.
where your path is going to go.
Exactly.
You just
Exactly.
have
But
to
it
start your path.
Yeah, it starts with the yes, right? It starts with
Yes.
the yes,
Yes.
and honoring that whatever it is, you don't know. Like you didn't
No,
know, oh,
you
I'm going to
don't
become
know.
this, author
No,
and travel the world and
no.
have,
I
have
had no clue. No, no clue at all.
Yeah. So I'm feeling so inspired to really lean into the yes. So thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any last words you'd want to share?
Just get out there and do what feels good to your heart.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you so much, Dr. Dawn. And yeah, and thank you to my listeners as well. And to those of you that reach out, know that it means a lot. And my invitation to you this week is to notice what enlivens you, to notice, that feels kind of interesting or exciting, or I feel a little glimmer of something when I think about maybe trying this thing out, and to say yes
Yes.
to yourself
Yes.
and to say yes
Say
to
yes.
life.